Long ago, in the village of Omu, nestled between rolling hills and vast open plains, the sun began to burn hotter than anyone could remember. The air shimmered with heat, and the once lush, green lands of Omu turned to shades of brown and gold. The earth cracked and split, its surface dry and brittle like the skin of an old drum left too long in the sun. Rivers that once flowed with life dwindled into empty, dusty beds. The animals that roamed the fields grew thin and weak, and the once vibrant songs of birds faded into a haunting silence. The people of Omu, tough as they were, grew desperate. They looked to the sky, their eyes full of hope and fear, waiting for rain that never came. Day after day, they prayed, sang, and offered sacrifices. But the heavens remained closed, sealed as though by an unseen hand. There was only one person they believed could save them: Elder Kofi, the Rainmaker. Elder Kofi, the man of rain. Elder Kofi had been the pillar of Omu for as long as anyone could remember. His presence was a source of comfort, his wisdom a guiding light. But it was his gift, his sacred ability to summon rain, that made him revered. When drought came, Kofi would climb the highest hill in the village, carrying his drum and his voice. His songs, ancient and powerful, seemed to stir the skies themselves. Time after time, the rain would come, washing away the people's fears and filling the land with life once more. But this time, fate had a different plan. The Feast of Pride. The drought stretched on for weeks, and the villagers, though weary, decided to hold a feast to lift their spirits. It was an offering of joy amid their suffering, a moment to forget their thirst and hunger. The square was alive with the beat of drums and the laughter of children. Women danced in colorful garments, their movements as fluid as rivers. Men clapped and sang, their voices echoing through the air. At the center of it all sat Chief Oba, the newly appointed leader of Omu. He was young, proud, and filled with ambition. His rise to power had been swift, and though he had the strength of a warrior, he lacked the humility of a leader. As the festivities reached their peak, Chief Oba stood, silencing the crowd with his presence. Eyes turned to him, expecting words of encouragement, perhaps a declaration of unity in these trying times. But instead, his gaze fell on Elder Kofi, the man of wisdom, the man of rain. With a smirk, the chief spoke words laced with mockery. "Tell me, old man," he said, his voice loud and commanding. "Where is your rain now? You've sung your songs, and yet the skies remain dry. Perhaps the Rainmaker has lost his magic, or perhaps he never had it." A hush fell over the crowd. The drums stopped. The dancers froze. Some villagers laughed nervously, desperate to stay on the chief's good side. Others lowered their heads, too ashamed to meet Elder Kofi's eyes. But Kofi did not react. He said nothing. He simply looked at Chief Oba, his eyes darkening like storm clouds on the horizon. The seeds of doubt. Humiliated, Elder Kofi left the feast, his heart heavy with sorrow. But Chief Oba was not done. That very night, as the village slept, the chief moved through the shadows, whispering into the ears of the people. "The Rainmaker has failed us," he said. "His songs are useless. His time is over. It is time for Omu to move forward, to trust in strength, not in stories of old men and their magic." Slowly, these whispers began to take root. The people, desperate for answers, began to doubt the man who had saved them so many times before. They turned their backs on Kofi, choosing instead to follow their proud and ambitious leader. The suffering deepens. Days turned into weeks, and the drought only grew worse. The sun seemed to burn hotter with each passing day, its relentless heat sapping the life from the land. Wells ran dry, their cool waters replaced by emptiness. The cattle, once symbols of strength and sustenance, lay crumpled in the dust, their ribs sharp against their skin like jagged rocks rising from barren earth. Their eyes, once vibrant, were now dull and lifeless, mirroring the despair of the land. The parched ground cracked beneath the weight of suffering, its deep fissures a silent cry to the heavens. Children's voices, faint and hollow, called out for water, their cries barely rising above the oppressive silence. Their lips were cracked, their small hands trembling as they clung to their mothers. The mothers, their faces etched with lines of anguish, whispered words of comfort they no longer believed. Their own throats were dry, their strength sapped by the relentless sun that scorched the life out of everything it touched. The village of Omu, once alive with laughter, music, and the hum of daily life, had become a desolate wasteland. The air was heavy with dust and despair. The wells had run dry, the crops had withered, and the rivers were nothing more than memories carved into the earth. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional wail of grief or the distant groan of the wind. And in that silence, the people began to see the truth. It wasn't Elder Kofi, the Rainmaker, who had failed them. It was their own arrogance, their pride, and their betrayal of the man who had been their savior time and time again. The return to humility. When the earth could bear no more, and the weight of their suffering had grown unbearable, the people of Omu finally gathered. They came not with pride, but with bowed heads and heavy hearts. Women carried their crying children. Men walked with shoulders hunched under the burden of their shame, and the elders leaned on their staffs, their eyes filled with regret. They made their way to the humble hut of Elder Kofi, the man they had mocked and abandoned in their ignorance. For years, he had called the rains that nourished their land, but they had doubted his gift, choosing instead to follow Chief Oba, whose pride blinded them all. Outside Kofi's home, the villagers fell to their knees. The young and the old, the strong and the weak, all knelt in the dust, their tears mixing with the dry soil. "Forgive us, Elder Kofi," they pleaded, their voices trembling with desperation. "We were blind. We were foolish. We doubted you, and now we suffer. Please, call the rain. Save us." For a long time, Kofi was silent. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying the weight of their pleas. His gaze was steady, his face unreadable. Finally, he spoke, his voice soft yet filled with the authority of one who understood the balance of the world. "I will call the rain," Kofi said, his words measured. "But you must remember this day. Remember what pride has cost you. Never again mock the gifts you do not understand, for they are not mine alone. They belong to the earth, the sky, and the ancestors who watch over us." The Song of the Rainmaker. With slow, deliberate steps, Kofi began the long climb to the highest hill in Omu. He carried his drum, worn smooth by the hands of generations, and his voice, honed by the wisdom of countless rituals. The village followed at a distance, their eyes fixed on him, their hearts heavy with hope and shame. At the summit, Kofi stood tall, his figure silhouetted against the unforgiving sun. The land stretched out before him, a canvas of desolation waiting for the touch of life. He placed his drum on the ground and began to sing. His voice, deep and resonant, rose like a prayer, carrying the ancient songs of his ancestors. These were not mere melodies. They were the language of the earth and the sky, a call to the forces that governed life itself. The drumbeat echoed through the hills, a steady rhythm that seemed to awaken the very soul of the land. The sky began to change. The relentless blue faded as clouds gathered on the horizon, dark and heavy. The wind picked up, swirling dust and leaves into the air. The villagers watched in awe as the first rumble of thunder rolled across the sky. And then it happened. The heavens opened, and rain poured down in torrents. It drenched the land, washing away the dust and filling the cracks in the earth. The wells overflowed, the rivers roared back to life, and the fields drank deeply of the life-giving water. The villagers laughed and wept, their joy as boundless as the rain that now fell freely. Children danced in the mud, their hands reaching toward the sky. Mothers held their babies close, their tears mingling with the rain. Fathers, once stoic, fell to their knees, their faces lifted in gratitude. The fall of pride. As the rain fell, the people of Omu turned their backs on Chief Oba. The man who had led them astray with his arrogance and disdain for wisdom was cast out, left to wander the land he had helped destroy. His name became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers of pride and the cost of betrayal. Elder Kofi, drenched but unwavering, stood before the villagers. His voice carried over the sound of the rain, his words etched into the hearts of all who listened. "Pride burns like the sun," he said, his tone both gentle and firm. "It blinds you, leaving you to wither and perish. But humility brings the rain. Remember this day. Remember what it has cost you. Never again doubt the gifts that sustain you, for they come not from man, but from the balance of the earth and sky. The legacy of the Rainmaker. From that day forward, the people of Omu lived with humility and gratitude. They honored the wisdom of their elders and respected the forces they could not fully understand. Elder Kofi was no longer just a rainmaker. He became a symbol of truth, humility, and the enduring bond between humanity and nature. The story of the drought and the return of the rain was passed down through generations. Around fires and in the shade of baobab trees, parents told their children of the time when pride nearly destroyed their village and how humility saved it. And so, the village of Omu flourished once more. The rivers flowed, the fields thrived, and the cattle grew strong. But above all, the people remembered the lesson of the Rainmaker. Pride may bring power for a moment, but humility, like the rain, will always return to nourish the soul. The story of the drought and the return of the rain was passed down through generations. Around fires and in the shade of baobab trees, parents told their children of the time when pride nearly destroyed their village and how humility saved it. And so, the village of Omu flourished once more. The rivers flowed, the fields thrived, and the cattle grew strong. But above all, the people remembered the lesson of the Rainmaker. Pride may bring power for a moment, but humility, like the rain, will always return to nourish the soul.